Well, hi everyone. I'm John Rethlin, and this is a retro review of WCW WrestleWar 1990 Wild Thing. The first of many retro reviews that you will be getting within the next few months, and actually, quite frankly, throughout the rest of the year. You're going to be getting all the 1990 WCW pay-per-views reviewed, all the WCW 2000 pay-per-views reviewed, including David Arquette's title win on an episode of Thunder. So I got a lot of content lined up. I even got some select WWE ones, so stay tuned. I like watching these older shows to see how well they hold up. This pay-per-view really held up. Even with the matches I didn't like, there was so much more good than bad. So let's jump right on into it. Despite it being the Jim Herd administration, and boy, what a black hole of suck that was, because so many talents that shouldn't have been on TV were, but there were still some great talents at this point. We come from Greensboro, North Carolina. Cheesy rap intro video, my god, so damn cheesy. So early 90s. We get JR and Terry Funk running down the card. Gordon Solie doing the backstage interviews, even rolling his eyes at Teddy Long when Teddy Long says, Dan Spivey is injured, he will not be here, I've never told a lie in my life. And then we get Kevin Sullivan and Buzz Sawyer versus the Dynamic Dudes, Johnny Ace and Shane Douglas. Not bad, dude's got a mild pop, they hit some good double team moves, but the heels would end up taking this when Buzz hit a top rope splash onto Johnny Ace, 1, 2, 3. Not a bad opening match, but honestly, the Dynamic Dudes, even as talented as Shane was, having to carry around the sack of shit that was Johnny Ace, I didn't really care about the team of Buzz and Kevin Sullivan. I never really cared for Buzz Sawyer, especially never cared for Kevin Sullivan. He was just never any good, in my personal opinion. He was much better promo than he was a worker. So anyway, we then get Missy Hyatt interviewing Norman the Lunatic. Look, let's be honest, Missy Hyatt should have been a heel in WCW. She wasn't, and that was disappointing. We then get a Jim Cornette Midnight Express interview. Cornette just talking about facing the Rock and Roll Express. They beat them so many times. Even though they beaten them so many times. This is just going to be another page in the chapter of the book of this feud. I mean, that wasn't actually what he said, but that was just my interpretation of it. They've had great matches for years and years. And then we get the Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express with Jim Cornette. And Stan Lane at one point said, the man who stole Ivana from Donald Trump, he's your friend of mine, Mr. Jim Cornette. I know where the feud started now. I really enjoyed this match. You can't watch a match between these guys really and not enjoy it, unless you're just not a fan of tag team wrestling. Because even putting aside how you feel about any of these guys, especially Cornette, because he's got his fans and he's got his detractors, and that's fair because he makes it easy for him to not like him. Let's be perfectly honest. As much as I do like his podcast, just a little bit of a soapbox thing, I totally get why people don't like him, and I certainly don't agree with everything he says. But this match, based on pure tag team wrestling, was absolutely terrific. It was just great stuff. You could not go wrong with this match. It was a long match. It was almost 20 minutes. There was also a lot of very, I guess off-topic jokes from JR. I mean, he would make a lot of comments about Cornette being gay and stuff like that. And you want to talk about commentary not aging well. And I mean, JR and Cornette are friends. I'm not trying to start any cancel culture thing with JR because that would be fucking stupid. But it's just funny to hear some of this commentary where you're just like, wow, it's weird how they got away with that back then, and boy, it has not aged well at all. You can still laugh at it because it was easy to laugh at the heels, and that's what you were supposed to do. The match was terrific. Again, Inside Cradle wins it. Rock and Roll Express get the victory, and there we go. It was a good match, though. Really, really good stuff. I really enjoyed this. And then we get the Skyscrapers, which was me, Mark Callis, and a masked skyscraper, which was actually Mike Enos. I forgot how big Mike Enos was, or is still. I think he's still alive. I know he retired a while ago. With Teddy Long versus the Road Warriors with Paul Ellering. It was a Chicago street fight in Greensboro. Geography not being one of Jim Herd's strong suits. It was a mess, but there were times where it was kind of fun. It was kind of cool to see a pre-Undertaker Mean Mark Callis and Mike Enos in like one of the old Doom masks. Speaking of Doom, they show up and they're just standing there, and Teddy Long's talking to them, and Mean Mark at one point gets dumped out of the ring and then just looks at the match and says, and he leaves. And Mike Enos gets beat with the Doomsday Device. And then Teddy Long gets in there, and Doom gets a face full of Teddy Long, gross, as I believe his Animal that tossed him on there. The Road Warriors just tossed him on there, and then we get a brawl between these guys where there's a lot of no selling between these guys, but these two big powerhouse tag teams, I certainly, loved any of the, the few matches that they had, and this was pretty good. pretty damn good stuff. I really did like this, and at least, you got a tease for another feud coming up. And then we get Garvin and Hayes, the non-Freebirds, because Hayes was an original Freebird. Jimmy Jam Garvin. Jimmy Garvin was a much better heel he was a good babyface, but he was also a pretty damn good heel, especially in World Class. And just him trying to be a member of the Freebirds just didn't work because it wasn't the original Freebirds. It wasn't even like close to it. Because Garvin at that point couldn't really work, and Hayes definitely couldn't work, though he had the charisma. And they took on Tom Zenk and Brian Pillman in a pretty good U.S. tag title match. I gotta say, even though I just pretty much dumped on Hayes and Garvin, they had some pretty damn good shit going on here, and really, really enjoyable. I can't really find much to complain about with this. So there were a few wrestled, a few too many for my liking. Because they went almost, I think they went 24 minutes. They went a pretty damn long time. I mean, this was the second longest match on the show, when you could argue that, that the Express, both Expresses should have gotten about 30 minutes, because they could just have a 30-minute classic and you could never get boring. But for what it was, especially considering that Brian Pillman was the only really good talent in here. I mean, Tom Zenk was a good tag team wrestler, but not necessarily exciting. Brian Pillman was kind of getting that push at this point, and the U.S. tag titles did mean something. Bit weird how they were just dropped all of a sudden, but I guess it sort of made sense, since they hadn't really been that active, in the middle part of 92. But anyway, good match, despite the rest holds, and the crossbody ends up pinning Garvin 1, 2, 3. They attack Brian Pillman afterwards, Zenk runs them off, and we got this going. So, okay, good match. The non-Freebirds keep their, anger from the crowd, and the belts stay on Zenk and Pillman. And then we get Arn and Ole Anderson versus the Steiners. Fake brothers versus real brothers. Even though Arn and Ole did look alike and look like they could be brothers, this is for the WCW Tag Team Championships. This is good. This is really goddamn good. I mean, you're getting the classic Andersons kiting off the ring, beating up Scott Steiner, focusing on his arm, his shoulder mainly, and just doing some really, really good tag work. And the Steiners just tossing both of them around. And Ole, at this point, I think this was one of Ole's last matches. I think he might have wrestled in May. I don't remember. I think he might have wrestled what they called originally Armed and Dangerous. It actually became Capital Combat, where RoboCop returns. Yes, I'm going to review that. Oh boy, but this match is good. We get a brawl between all four of these guys, as you would expect, and another inside cradle pins Ole 1, 2, 3, and then they attack Scott Steiner afterwards, and Rick kind of doesn't really run them off until it was too late, and then we get Sting coming down the ringside for this. Sting had been injured at the end of Clash of Champions 10. He was supposed to face Ric Flair here for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. But they had to switch Sting, or they had to take Sting out and switch Luger, who was a great heel U.S. champion, and was still the U.S. champion at this time, to face Ric Flair and win it to honor Sting. And it's Sting down there, and then Sting would go to the back. He would show up later. So it's Flair versus Luger. You really can't go wrong with this. Woman was also there. She was in Ric Flair's corner. They had seen her as somebody big and somebody that they could use pretty well. 35 plus minutes, and really didn't get boring. I mean, as much shit as I give Luger justifiably for what he did to Liz, what he caused, he had a hand in it. Just saying. I can't discount how good of a run he had between 89 and 91. I can't, even 92, actually. I mean, yes, but especially 89 and 90, he was really on a roll. I mean, even in 88, those matches with Flair, he was finally getting it. But then again, Flair could work with a goddamn broom and get something out of it. And this was just a great match. The power from Luger, the wearing down by Flair, it was just a great classic match. And at one point, woman screaming as she sees a wrestler lock another male in a chokehold. Wouldn't be the last time, but I digress. Sting comes back, and he's there on crutches, because this won't factor into the finish, so Luger gets the torture rack on after a ref bump, and here come Ole and Arn. And Ole safely hitting Sting in the gut with the crutches. Arn, hold him real good so he doesn't get hurt, so I can look like I'm hurting him. And then Luger comes out, battles both of them, but the ref comes to, and he starts counting, and he does a count-out finish. And then Steiners come down. They attack Ole and Arn. So it's like a big old schmoz finish and stuff like that. And we get the end of that match. So Luger loses by countout. Flair keeps the championship. Luger looks strong. And you build up more sympathy for Sting and stuff like that, because eventually he would face Ric Flair like just under 5 months later after getting injured. He would come back. And I don't know how good his knee was, but apparently, Sting was just a physical phenomenon. Sorry. I always have to do that. I always do it in my head. But Sting would come back and face Ric Flair at Great American Bash 1990. This pay-per-view, however, is pretty goddamn good. Despite how it sounded like I was down on some of the wrestlers and some of the finishes, this pay-per-view flowed really well. This was a quick 2 hour and 50-minute pay-per-view. Well, just under 2 hours and 50 minutes. So I really I don't grade them, but this would really, really be up there with a lot of the older shows I watch. So excuse me. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.